Hey there, greetings everybody. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. And it's a beautiful day. I decided that I was going to do something. I've been thinking about this for a bit. I didn't actually include it in this week because I was still just in the thinking about it process, but I decided I was going to do this. So, most of you know that I listen to a playlist, which is right here normally. And basically, I like to rotate about 20 albums, constantly rotating them. What it does for me is it does a couple things for me. I think the first thing it does for me is that it gives me kind of a basis for music every day, makes me do it every day. The other thing that it does too, I think, is that it makes me much more familiar with albums. So sometimes I'm listening to them while I'm doing stuff, other times I'm sitting there listening to them, but it gives me a lot more familiarity with the albums than I normally would get if I just listen to them on occasion here and there. And I think the vast majority of us have playlists. Some of us have song playlists on our phone. Some have it little Walkmans. They walk around. I don't know what you call them. Headphone sets, I guess. They walk around playing stuff that way. Some have little recording devices that they stick in their ears, buds, and listen to them wherever they happen to be. Some people, like me, I tend to like albums. I pretty much am an album person, really. It's rare to hear me listening to like a playlist that's sometimes when I'm listening to where I'm on the computer doing my baseball, I'll put on an album on the computer, have my headphones on and listening to it while I'm doing that. And sometimes it'll get to the end and it'll start playing songs, individual songs. Usually after a couple of those I stop it and start a new album. I'm not much for individual songs. Most of the time is because they just play those songs that you know that they're going to play from those bands that they might have one or two hits, and those are the only ones they're ever going to play. So I generally don't do that, and I don't listen to the radio at all. So for me, it's pretty much albums, and in my case, CDs. I prefer CDs. So generally what I'm speaking is I have this CD list, which is usually here, but some of them are here because I'm going to talk about them in a minute. And this list over here, this column here, is the list that I rotate them up and rotate them into the playlist as I take old albums out. I've been very careful over the 2 or 3 years that I've been on this channel not to burn out albums, because I want to be able to go back to them, and I have a fair number of albums that I quite like, but I almost never listen to them because I overkilled them, or they were on the radio too much, or I heard them too much, and I just burned out from them. So that's how I work my playlist. I play them until they get to a certain point when I start feeling like, they've been on here a bit too long and I'm getting kind of tired. I'm going to take them off before they get burned out. So that's how I normally do it. So today what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, because you're just going to be watching, is I'm going to talk about my playlist a bit. So my playlist consists of 20 albums. And during once a week I go into the playlist, usually on the weekend, and I take the ones out that have been, I think, kind of getting to that too familiar feeling with me. So I take them out and I move everybody up so that there's always moving up. And so that basically the reason I move them up is so I know roughly how long they've been on, and I'm not confused by that. So I just keep moving them up. So the ones at the top have been on there the longest, the ones at the bottom are the newest. And then I add my new ones. And my new ones always come from this list, because these are the ones I've looked at and said, yeah, I'm gonna put this in my playlist. I want to listen to this a lot. I put them in my playlist. So sometimes they gotta wait a bit to get their turn on there. And then I have all these other ones too, which I play on periodical times whenever I feel like it. And from that I also draw more stuff to put in my backup list so I can get them on my playlist. And I also have this list over here, which you can see a little bit of. These are albums that I've purchased recently, some of them not so recently, that need to be listened to. So whenever I want to hear something new, I go to that and I drag something off and put it on. So anyways, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you I'm going to talk about the playlist. I'm going to tell you about what I've just. So recently, I just took these 3 albums off my playlist because they've been on there for a fair bit of time. This one, which is Nectar's Journey to the Center of the Eye, it was on there for a lengthy time, much longer. Part of it was the winter, and I wasn't listening to my playlist as much, so it accumulated more time than normal. I think I would be accurate to say it's been on there maybe between 10 and 11 months. So, and I wasn't getting bored with it, but I decided to pull it anyways because that's, to me, long enough for it. So that's one of the albums. The other album I pulled was this one, Jailbreak, Thin Lizzy. I was starting to get kind of a little bit tired of it. And it's been on here maybe, let me say, maybe 5, probably more like 6 months it was on there. So that's a fair bit of time. It's a half a year. So I pulled that one. And the other one was this one, the Rolling Stones. Now you're probably saying, well, that's fairly new. Yeah, it is fairly new. Only been on the playlist about maybe 3 months. The thing with the Stones, and there's other bands like this too, that they're like, I like to use the analogy of stars. So with red stars, like red dwarf stars, they can burn forever. They burn at a low heat and they can burn forever. And then you got yellow main sequence dwarfs that can burn at a fairly steady pace for a long period of time as well. And then you have things like blue giants, which burn really hot but burn out really quickly. And that's kind of what happened with this album. So I listened to it a ton, and then I just got kind of tired of it, and I don't want it to burn out completely, so I took it off. So those are the 3 I pulled. So so here are the 3 I've added to the list here, to the playlist. And they were the top 3 on this list here, on this one here. So then when I pulled these 3, I've just moved everybody up so they're getting closer to the top. I'm kind of anal that way, if you probably already figured, but that's the case. So the 3 albums I chose are Jethro Tull's Heavy Horses, which was at the top of the list. So now I have 3 Tull albums currently sitting on my playlist. That's not normal for me. Usually I try to keep it around 1, maybe a second album coming on, but I've got so much Tull in the last half a year or so that I want to play as much of it as I can. So there's 3 of them on there. This one I bought around the, I would have to say probably in the summer last year, late in the summer. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and check my new stuff purchased, but definitely want to hear this. So I've listened to its entirety once, so now it just gets on the playlist, so it'll go part of the rotation, and that way I'll get to listen to it a lot more, which is what I like to do. If I can get it back in here, and then I can. And then the last one is this one, Saucer Full of Secrets. Probably listened to this maybe 5 times already before I even got on the playlist. I like it. It's really catchy. I like it a lot. I think it's very underrated too for a Pink Floyd album. And also I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's kind of weird that it's like that. Anyways, really psychedelic. I think this is their first cover with, what do they call those guys? I don't remember. Anyways, so I'm kind of excited to listen to this one a lot more. So it's on my playlist. It'll get its regular play. So generally speaking, with my playlist too, sorry, I'm just trying to get her back in there so I don't lose it. So generally speaking, with my playlist too, is I tend to listen to anywhere between 3 and 6 albums a day, like in their entirety, which doesn't seem like much, but that's a lot when you think that most albums are 40 minutes, maybe 60 minutes in length. So you're looking at probably somewhere between 4 and 6 hours of listening time. Now, a lot of the case, it's I play it when I'm traveling, or I'm listening to it while I'm doing my baseball, or I'm doing stuff in the house and listening to it. So that's generally how I get a lot of my listening in, but it varies. I think I probably listen to more on the weekends than I do during the week because I'm at work. So not getting as much listening time then. But I would say a low end is probably 3 times a week and a high end is probably 6. So generally what I like to do is I'll I listen to, if I'm not too busy that day and I know I'm going to be listening to a lot of albums, I may pick 3 or 4 off of my playlist and play them, and then have a new one. Plus, another thing I like to do, and we'll get into this in a minute too, is I like to take a band that I've recently discovered and I really liked something of them, and I will play one of their albums from their entire discography every day until I get through it all. Currently, I'm doing Gryphon with that. Last week it was Chicago. So what happened with Chicago is, actually it might have been a week or 2 ago, I bought an album by them, and I've been wanting to get into the band, but you know how it is. You're out shopping, you see this, you see that, you buy that, and then you come home and say, oh, I wanted to get something from them, and then you forget it because you can't remember everything. There's so much music out there. So generally what I do is, if I buy one, I will listen to the rest of their discography. So Chicago's a band I've been interested in for some time. I don't want to say that they're new to me, because that would be not the truth. I've known and listened to different Chicago music probably my whole life. Some of it I didn't even know was Chicago, but I never actually owned anything from them. So that's probably more like it. So I listened up to about the 7th album, then I decided they're getting a little bit out of what I wanted to listen to, so I stopped them. And then recently Ben, in one of his album ranking shows that we were doing, gave me an album by Gryphon, who was another band I had been interested in but had not really followed too much. And once I listened to that album, because I was now forced into a position to listen to it, and that's usually how it works with me, I said, wow, this is really good. So then I started going back and checking them all. So now I've listened to the first 5, and they've released two in the last 4 years after a 41-year hiatus. So now I'm going to listen to those 2 as well. So they're on my list. So that's generally my listening habits. On occasion, I may, when I'm driving, just grab an album at random, but I tend to like to be very sequential about my music listening to. I like to listen to my stuff in my playlist. I like to listen to the new stuff for the first time. And if I hear a new band, I like to kind of indulge in them a bit. So those are my 3 kind of habits. And I don't think my habits are really any of that weird from a lot of people. Maybe I'm a little bit old-fashioned, but that's okay. I'm old. And then I'm going to finish off the episode now by giving you my top 5 albums that are on my playlist according to how I can currently feel about them. So every week I kind of look at them and say, these guys are probably the 5 best on here. And the reason I do it that way is so that something was in the top 5 of my favorites for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it's fallen off. Then I just start kind of keeping an eye on it, like how long have I been listening to it, type of thing. So we're going to give them in kind of reverse order. I kind of put them in an order because I just look at them and say, yeah, this one I'm listening to, I like it a little bit more, this one a little bit less, you know how it is. It's kind of a ranking thing. So I'm going to give you my 5 favorite albums in ranking order currently on my playlist. So the first, number 5 one would be this one, Hawkwind, Warrior at the Edge of Time. I'm really starting to like this a lot. Now I did initially hear this when I was, when somebody gave me the first Hawkwind album, they suggested to go listen to some Hawkwind. So when I went on, the place said either Hall of the Mountain Grill or this one. So I liked the cover on this one a little better. So I started listening to it, and I thought, this is pretty good. And eventually, but it was too expensive, so I just left it. And then it went down a little bit, so I bought it. And it waited its turn. It's now on the playlist. The Hall of the Mountain Grill was on my playlist last year. So this one, I've been listening to it, and it wasn't really catching on too much, but the last few days, yesterday when I was doing my baseball, I was listening to this. I was saying, this is so catchy, man, so catchy. But it was already building up to a point where I knew it was going to make my top 5, and so here it is. Hawkwind's Warrior at the Edge of Time. Another one with Lemmy on it as well. It's really good artwork. Music is, well, all Hawkwind sounds pretty similar, especially in this time period. Really good though. Great album. So number 5. Number 4 is an album that's been on. So this has been on my. Just so you know, this has been on my playlist maybe a little over 3 months, maybe. This one, or even more. Actually, it might be more. It might be closer to 5. This one's been on my playlist about the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less, maybe 4 months. This is really good. Every time I listen to it, I like it more. And it's it's so clear, clear sounding, great production. Guitar is fantastic. I think the vocalist is what makes this album, though. He's so good. I just think he's fantastic, and I think the songs are well written and well off. And there's probably a little bit too much music on here, but at the same time, really clear, really loud, pretty heavy too. So, and this was in my top 10 albums from last year too. So, currently, I think it's been on the playlist maybe about 4 months. It's been about 4 months, maybe a little bit more, in between, and somewhere around 4 to 5 months. And so that's Chaos in Color by Uriah Heep. Great album. So number 4. Number 3, another Jethro Tull album. This is Broadsword and the Beast. First heard this, but it was given to me. Not the album itself, but the recommendation to listen to it. I think it was on Ben's Album Challenge initially. It may have been in one of the Prog Battle Wars. And then, of course, when I was out one day, the place that I go had bought an estate, and the guy was a huge prog person, and he had almost all Jethro Tull stuff, and I bought like 5 of them. And this was one of them, and this one is really good. It is really quite good. Number 3 right now. I suspect it'll go up. It's been on my playlist maybe 3 months, but doing well. Number 3. Number 2, The Seventh House by IQ. I wasn't sure if I was going to like this as much as Dark Matter, but it's already like getting up there. Lots of this is a strong album. Lots of that kind of Genesis sound that I love, but uniquely them. It's much more. But the production is good. The amount of keyboards and synthesizers is a good amount, not overly amount, and really catchy songs. And I've grown to really like this vocalist quite a bit. So this is going to come in number 2. This has also been on my charts, on my playlist, maybe 4 months. I'm thinking maybe 4, maybe a little bit more than 4, coming up to 5 maybe. And the number 1, Stormwatch, Jethro Tull. This is a very strong album. Knocked out a very strong album too. A few weeks ago, it was competing with Camel's debut album, which was my number 1 album a few weeks back, maybe a month back now. And this one came, it kind of became the number 1 album. This is strong. The reason I like this so much, Stormwatch, is that my favorite drummer by these guys is on here. As you know, you've watched my drumming episodes. This is kind of the last album of that group of musicians. I think it's the last one. There may be one more after it. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. But so good. So much good stuff on here. I love the album cover and the back as well. So this is my number 1 album. Been around about the same length of time as Seventh House. The Seventh House, maybe 4.5, 5 months. So that's where it all stands right now. So this is number 1. Number 2, Seventh House. Number 3, Broadsword and the Beast. Number 4, Uriah Heep's Chaos and Color. And last but not least, Hawkwind, Warrior at the Edge of Time. So these are my top 5 right now. And this will change to currently I think these are pretty strong 5. So it might be difficult for some other albums to kind of get in there, but it'll eventually happen. It always does. And so that's it. So that's what I'm decided to do an episode. This will just be under the title My Playlist, which will or the playlist or something like that, and it'll come out probably on Saturday. I'm recording it today just because it's nice out, and I wanted to do something different, and so we are. I don't think if I do this weekly, which I'm thinking of doing, they won't be nearly as long. It's just the first week I wanted to kind of go over what I was going to do. So I hope you enjoy this, and by all means, in the comment section below, put your 5 favorite albums currently, or the what's in your playlist, or what bands you discovered, all that stuff, because that's the stuff that I look for. That's what tells me that you're like me, and also it also gives me some new material to listen to, or it reminds me of stuff that, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted to do that, or maybe it brings back an album that I haven't listened to for a while, because I sometimes do that. I'll put something in my backup list that I have had on my playlist before, but I feel like I need a refresher on it, so it'll go back in. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please hit the like and subscribe. Like again, I said, put your comments below, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content. And we'll see you again. Have yourself a good day. Goodbye.